All right, ladies and gents, welcome to the third official episode of Masti with your co-host, Satvik Saini. Today we have a very special episode with a person very special and dear to me, the one and only Girija Kulkarni. She is becoming a vet, or on the way to become a vet, and I thought she'd be the perfect person to have on for this episode discussing the ultra-hit documentary series, Tiger King. And today we'll be running a different type of format today where I'll have questions blocked off till like the 20th minute of the interview. Then the fans or some of the people on can start beginning to ask me or Girija questions. So that's what will be the format for today. And we'll have Girija join now. I'm going to have a requester. Waiting for her to go live. Girija, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Can you hear me okay?
That was weirdly formal. I hated it.
What was formal? My introduction?
Yeah.
All right. So before we dive in and do all the good stuff, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, I'm your girlfriend. In case anybody was wondering. I am at school at CU Boulder right now. I'm an ecology and evolutionary biology major. So my passion is my hobby, and my hobby is my career. I work with animals. I study animals. I have animals. This is what I do. So my background is in canine and predator behavioral patterns. So pretty much all kinds of work in, like you said, veterinary care, as well as work in the field. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
Good stuff. We're happy to have you. So without further ado, welcome to the new cool cats and kittens, or kittens and, or hello
Hey
kitty.
there,
Welcome.
all you cool cats and kittens.
There we go. All right. So right off the bat, what are your first thoughts on this show? Like, as an animal lover, was this kind of hard for you to watch all the way through? Like, be honest.
It was hard. And I didn't think it would be that hard, you know? So for everybody that is listening, we watched it together, actually. Satvik and I Netflix partied, and we watched each of the episodes together, and we sat and we discussed and things like that. And I think I remember one of the first comments, like after the opening shot to you in the Netflix party discussion, was like, this is hard for me to watch.
Yeah,
This is really hard for me to watch. Just a mixture of like the cubs mewling, and one of the very, very first shots in like the first 10 minutes was this gorgeous clouded leopard sitting in a dog cage, like a cage meant for a sized, like Cooper sized dog, in the back of a van in the middle of Florida, like in the summer. And I was like, oh man, if the rest of the show is gonna be like this, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to watch it all the way through.
well, I think it was one of the craziest shows where I thought, like, I didn't really expect anything out of it, but like what I expected, whatever the case was like very vastly different than what I got from the show. Like, and it was hard because it was one of the shows where you literally came out of it not liking anyone per se, none of the characters besides a couple that I could think of.
Yeah, absolutely. I hated everybody.
So then, like right off the bat, I don't know what episode this was, but one of the episodes mentioned like more tigers live currently in captivity than the wild. So as someone who like knows about the exotic animal trade, like how true is that statement and how shocking is that to you?
Honestly, the truth of it is, I think why it was shocking is because there are more tigers throughout the mainland United States. So I'm talking about zoos, sanctuaries, personal pets than there are in the wild right now. In the wild, there are almost less than 3,000 tigers. And we're talking about composite. So we're talking about Bengal tigers, we're talking about snow tigers. So honestly, I think them opening the show with that statistic was one of the better things that they did in regards to animal welfare, just because we talk so much about, oh my God, tigers are an endangered species, they're going to go extinct. And we don't realize like how much human trafficking is contributing to that endangered species listing, you know?
So when you say, as far as like the captivity, and I know on like the last episode, the new one that launched, and like one of the guests was like, some of these tigers can't go back to the wild. And how true is that?
So it's actually
They
very
belong
true.
in the wild. They're
So here's
tigers.
the thing with tigers that are bred in captivity, and here's the issue with like wild animals that are bred in captivity in general. We refer to them as tame or habituated, which pretty much means they're not domesticated. They're not pets. They're not something that you can keep in your household, but they are habituated, which means that they no longer see humans as a threat. They no longer see humans as a meal. They actually see humans as kind of a source to rely on. And that's why you can't release these animals back into the forests, because they don't know how to hunt. You take these cubs and you bottle feed them for the first 6 months, and then you're throwing them Walmart meat packets for the rest of their life. They have no idea. Yeah, they have no idea how to hunt. They have no idea how to mark their territory. So it's a huge problem. It's a one big cycle. Is like once you put two tigers in captivity and they keep breeding and they keep having these litters and things like that, you can't release them back into the wild.
Wait, what if you like could, but it would just be a hard adjustment for them? Like, how feasible would that be?
So this is something that we call associative learning in animal behavior, and it's pretty much the baby animal picks up things like hunting, things like mating, things like social behaviors and social cues from their mothers. So it would be one thing to try and reteach these really kind of crucial life skills. But here's the thing. All animals, including humans, have a learning threshold, right? Like there's a period of time where human babies learn how to walk, and that's like there's also a period of time where tiger babies learn how to hunt. And once you surpass that threshold, it's almost impossible to go back.
So there's a certain point, and after you hit that point, then they're just bred to be in captive.
Yeah, you're screwed.
Interesting. So as far as Carol Baskin goes with like Doc Antle and Joe Exotic. Joe Exotic and Doc Antle were kind of running these cults in a way, but Carol Baskin led this to be animal rights movement kind of deal. So how different was she? Better, worse than the other two? In the way she marketed, the way she went about things, if at all, in your opinion?
I will be completely honest with you. There is no lesser of the three evils. Like all of them were exploiting the animals. They were mass marketing these like interactions with the animals that you were not supposed to have. And the only difference is Joe Exotic was, honestly, I would say Joe Exotic was the most open about it. Yes, he was a psychopath, but at least he was the one who was like, I have the tiny baby cubs so that you pay me money, right? And the thing about Carol was she was masquerading as this animal rights person and this, lover of big cats and things like that. And I'm a firm believer. If you claim to be a lover of animals, all animals, you, especially exotics, the people who are working the hardest for their safety and their security are the people who are working to keep their habitats, whole in the wild, who are working on anti-poaching efforts, who are working to keep wild places wild. You cannot be a Carol Baskin type of person and say, I love tigers, because your tigers are still in cages.
So doesn't that make Carol worse because she's trying to be something she's not? Or like Doc Antle, which is another story. I have a different take on him, but we'll get on him. But Joe Exotic was like, yeah, come to my zoo. I want to give these people like a otherworldly experience, where Carol Baskin was trying to create this world for them. But she wouldn't release them. She would just do the same thing for money. So ultimately, all three of them were down for money.
Absolutely.
So what does this say about like the animal rights movement in the exotical animal trade department per se?
The animal rights area is so difficult. And I kind of equate animal rights to the same way where like people fight about kind of the stipulations behind feminism, because, you know, you get like neo-feminists and things like that. And same thing, you get like these neo-animal rights people who are like, you have to be vegan and all hemp, and only then can you call yourself an animals rights person. I don't think you need to be that extreme, but Carol was definitely not an animals rights person. If you want to see a decrease of tigers in captivity in the United States, take the first stand and release yours first, or rehabituate yours into like a refuge or a sanctuary somewhere in the Himalayas, somewhere in like the Mongolian region. Take that first step. You want to be an animal rights activist, take that leap, stop profiting off of it, and focus on the benefits of the animals. So I think you're right in the sense where you said she was worse than the other two, because at least the other two were like, yes, we take the cubs and we make money off of them. Where she was insisting over and over again, and she was like, no, I don't profit off of this. Like, none of this, nothing good is coming to me, you know? Like.
But then, since you mentioned, like, if they're in this cycle of being in the zoo and kept at the zoo, then they're not domesticated, but kind of tamed in a way. So how would you break that cycle then? So working on their habitats, but how would you, just the ones in the wild, they're endangered, you would breed them more? How would you go about that?
Here's the thing. So remember what I said about that learning threshold?
Okay.
If you release cubs in that extremely crucial period, and if you take these cubs and you can do like these intermediate release processes, and they will pick things up themselves based off of the other individuals in the area. And I'm not so sure. So felines aren't actually my focus. I do canidae predators. So I'm currently working on gray wolves. And I have seen this take place in the Yellowstone ecosystem project, where all of the wolves were killed off in Yellowstone. And people were like, we don't have any more wolves in that park. How are we just going to put them back? Here's the thing. If you take pups, you take weaned pups and you keep them for the first 6 months in like a refuge type of area. So it is a national park, but it's still fenced so that humans can keep an eye on them, but not interact. Release live game into that kind of controlled environment so that they can learn how to hunt and things for themselves. And then after that 6 months have passed, then you do 6 months in a larger period of land and then a larger period of land until you can release them. That works. It works with almost every kind of animal. So we've seen you can captively breed predators and you can release them, but it takes a certain kind of dedication. It takes a certain kind of funding. And people are just more concerned about profiting off of these gorgeous creatures than they are actually saving them.
I think along with profit, I also think having a tiger is a little bit of like a status symbol. Kind of like why would someone have like a Lambo? Not like, it's not a direct analogy, but it's literally a status symbol, right? Would you be someone who had a tiger? You're like, oh, I have a pet tiger. I would be kind of not turned on, but like I'd be like, whoa, like you have a tiger. Like I might want to go see and pet it, or see it at least, kind of deal. Like Mike Tyson had one. It's a couple like high tier celebrities have had one. So that might also be like part of the. I don't know if those guys are trying to profit off them, but they're just like, oh, I have a badass animal, wild animal that belongs in the wild with me in my place.
See, but then you can get into this whole discussion about like, what is the human obsession with trying to control all wild things? What is this human innate need to be in charge of everything? You know?
Status, maybe. I don't know, trying to get laid. A lot of
honestly, we could get into this whole Freudian discussion about like how everybody does everything just to get laid, but
yeah, I mean, this kind of does tie into. So, I guess we can go deep dive into some of the characters now. Let's start with Joe Exotic. I personally don't think Joe Exotic's that evil. I just think he has a huge, like, craving need for attention, and he just goes overboard. But I don't think he does any of those things out of like evil. Whereas some of the other guys, I think, are out truly evil. But Joe Exotic, he turned a straight man, not one, but two straight men gay for him in marriage, and they were straight the entire time. Like for meth. I mean, meth can't be that good, can it?
And tigers.
Tigers was the lure, though, but I think it was meth that kept them there. Like how long do you have to realize like you don't like other dudes kind of deal. Like 10 years is a long time. Maybe a week, like you can try it for sure. No knocking that, but like try it and then figure it out maybe. And you know it works for you, it doesn't.
First of
But
all,
that's just crazy.
the
10 years
person,
and then you figure out like, oh, I'm actually straight.
as the person who's dating you, the fact that you said I would maybe try it for a week, we're gonna table that for a second, and
Okay,
you
no,
and I'll come back to that
I'm
later.
saying somebody in that boat
We'll
is experimenting.
later. But I don't know. I don't know what goes through the mind of a junkie. And I told you this earlier. Somebody who is like as big of an animal lover as me, even like it would take more than just like playtime with cubs to get me to like spend time on any of those locations. Like I don't know. You're right. I think you're right. It had to be way more of the drugs and the lifestyle than it was the animals. I don't think it's just the animals that.
Oh, so here, I have an interesting question. Let's say you've been offered this prestigious internship. As an animal lover, you have to be at one of the three camps or cults: Joe Exotic, Doc Antols, or Carol Baskins for a week. Who would you go with?
Oh man. Okay, definitely not Doc's because he like preyed on young women, right?
So did Joe.
And like as
Joe preyed on men.
Joe was gay. That's what I'm saying. I would be safe. You're asking me.
Oh yeah. Oh, I see.
Right? So definitely not Doc's. I would be the least safe at Doc's. Joe's was very abusive. A lot of how they treated the animals was abusive. I think as much as it pains me, I would probably listen, I'm thinking about it as like a whole, as like treatment of the animals, treatment of the people, right? Like, yes, Carol was messed up, but her location was clean. And she wasn't like outwardly, mistreating. Okay, yes, all of her employees were volunteers. Like that was high levels of slave labor, like indentured servitude or whatever.
That were working like Wall Street hours.
Do you not remember that one girl who came out of Doc's cult? And remember, she was the one that she was like a little bit younger, and she was talking about just all of the like mental trauma that she went through from being there. Nobody that worked for Carol ever said that.
But it's disguised. Is like, but those Wall Street, like those are like Wall Street finance hours, like 100 hours a week, and plus you're not getting paid. But it's disguised as volunteerism, so that's the only thing that differentiates it. But I think it's borderline the same.
No, absolutely.
There's no right answer here.
It's like Carol's volunteers were volunteers, right? And like at the end of the day, they say whatever, like, oh, I'm there for the love of the animals, I'm there for the animal rights cause, whatever. Doc's girls looked brainwashed. They looked like something was wrong with them. And even Joe's, like outside of Joe's original crew, all of the people that worked at Joe's place too looked a little bit somewhere else. And what Mithali just commented is completely true. I don't think that I could be in the same vicinity as Doc and not just rip him a fresh one for appropriating my culture, for appropriating our culture.
This is
as an Indian woman, I don't think that I could be in the same space as that man and not rip him a fresh one.
This is what my take on Doc is. First of all, a lot of you that don't know where the name Bhagwan came from, it's from Hinduism, which means God. So this narcissistic piece of shit literally called himself God, and then discovered the Karma Sutra with Hinduism and started a brothel, which would lure girls in with tigers, which is insane to me. Plus, he's like, what is it with like those types of cults with really unattractive dudes leading them? I don't get it. Like, what kind of lure how charming would you have to be to lure someone like you or another intern, young in their like 18s, 19 years old, to go to something like that?
I don't know, man. I'm here to talk about cats. I can't make a testament to any of like the human side of things. I can talk to you about the cats all day. I can't talk to you about the humans. I don't understand humans. This is why I work with animals.
No, that's interesting. But you would go with Carol then. Carol's camp.
I think so.
Interesting.
You know, you would make a very cute fourth husband for Joe.
Are you kidding me?
It'd be adorable. Honestly, I'd come visit you.
I would probably have to go with Joe's though.
How did I know?
Just because it was kind of exciting. I would go there for a week just to check it out and obviously dip. But I kind of hard with the Walmart trucks because I'm vegetarian. So I don't know what I would eat.
Yeah, how would you eat off of the meat truck, the community meat trucks?
I'll figure something out. So who did you think was the worst character for you? Obviously not Carol because you would go to her camp.
The worst isn't like I just didn't like them, or like the worst by action.
Both. Either.
Because there's like a lot of people, like, I'm telling you, Doc Antle, if this ever comes across your feed, you and I have beef. We have big beef. But goodness. Oh God, the hitman was creepy. Alan was creepy.
Oh yeah.
He was oh man. He was weird. I did not love
Jeff Lowe.
Jeff Lowe and his wife. Yeah, Jeff Lowe and his wife. They were just uncomfortable. The bathtub scene. You're right. Alan's little bathtub scene. What was that?
I think worse than Joe. I think by far. A lot of people might disagree, but I think the worst was Howard. Something is definitely up with that man. Either Carol has some like whack shit on him. He is whipped to beyond belief. He's just like dead inside. You saw that picture with him chained, right? Carol's definitely dominating.
You didn't love the wedding photos? You didn't love those wedding photos?
No.
I added those to our portfolio.
Imagine that's never gonna happen. Imagine you going on a date with someone and like, okay, I'm on a date, let's role play here. I'm on a date with like Carol and you're Carol, and you're like, fun fact about yourself is there's rumors flying around that I killed my ex-husband. What man would be like, there would be a second date? He's the most whack by far. Worse than Joe, worse than Jeff Lowe, all of them.
Okay, but how is he any better than any of Joe's husbands?
Because those guys came around. What's this guy's deal? He's been in this for so long, and he's like big cat rescue all the way. Like there's something else going on there. Don't you think? He looks dead inside every time he talks.
I didn't do any of my reading on her background just because she also infuriates me on like a completely different level. But getting behind her message would be much easier than getting behind any of the other messages. So okay, yes, he's a weirdo, and he was like definitely a big old simp for Carol and whatever she was offering, but I don't know. Something about Travis and John Finley being like straight men. Travis to the point where he, trigger warning for anybody that's listening, to where he killed himself.
But we saw today, right? That was apparently an accident. He was playing around, he was joking around, which makes it more sad, honestly.
How are you ever going to know what was going through his head? I told you, do you remember like the first time they ever flashed up his face? I messaged in the Netflix party and I was like, this young boy is trapped. You can see it on his face. You can see it in his eyes. Even in this photograph, which probably they took several different tries of, this boy is scared.
But he's young. I think it was a meth. All of them didn't have teeth.
I bet Travis had teeth.
Maybe, but he was about to lose them if he continued. Oh, did you see his mom at the funeral? And then I was like, oh, I understood meth addiction right away. She was like, bobbing
Oh,
up the
she
entire
was
time.
tweaking. She was tweaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was tripping at the funeral.
What about your favorite characters? Also, anyone in the audience watching, feel free to shoot us your questions now while we're still discussing.
Oh, my favorite characters. I told you, the OG staff. Joe's OG staff, I loved. So John Rinke, Saf, and Eric, those three, I really loved them. They were, all three of them were in it for the animals. All three of them, okay, albeit they did go along with a lot of Joe's antics, but in the afterthoughts, they all did mention like how little of their support he had. So I was quite fond of those three.
I like the guy with no legs the most because
John
he was like
Rinke,
he was in it for the animals, and once because he was calling out Joe Exotic on his shit and Jeff Lowe. So once Jeff Lowe came in, he like, I'm dipping.
yeah.
But the other guy, the long haired guy, I don't know why he went back with Jeff Lowe, because I know Jeff Lowe's definitely messed up too. He was definitely
I
messed
think
up.
so. What he kept alluding to was, I think he was in it for the animals. They, he hand reared a lot of them, and a lot of them trusted him. And as somebody who works with animals firsthand, I can tell you, once you form those bonds with like a lot of your patients and a lot of animals that you're working with, it is extremely hard to leave those animals behind. So no matter what kind of abuse that he was enduring from management, from the owners, it is hard to see your babies left in the hands of monsters.
No, what about I guess the show that mattered the most, besides all the characters, the tigers? What about them? Do you want some of them moved to, like the Colorado? What's these? Isn't there a sanctuary here?
There is the Rocky Mountain Wildlife Arsenal. Takes in animals like this that are liberated from abuse and neglect situations. And these are animals that have been habituated, that have been tamed,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much live out the rest of their lives in controlled environments. But here's the thing. Here's the point that I want to drive home is with, and I think we're getting questions, and we might want to switch over to that. But
Yeah, we'll take
with
Shivani's question right after this.
oh, look, my hair thing fell out. With all of the animals and things like that struggle, the beauty about refuges and sanctuaries and things like that is that they don't breed the animals. So once they're at a refuge, once they're at a sanctuary, the animals are being taken care of until they naturally pass or have to be euthanized because of an outstanding medical issue. The problem with all of these places, Doc Antle's place, Joe Exotic's place, is that all of these animals were still procreating. They were still having cubs. And that's why the cycle wasn't being broken.
Because the Cubs brought the most money.
Exactly. Whereas places like Wildlife Animal Sanctuary, they take these animals in, they die off, and that's the end of it, right? And so like a lot of these sanctuaries and things like that, you will see a massive flux, whether it's seasonally or by year. Sometimes they have massive amounts of animals, sometimes they don't have animals, because their goal is to empty the cages.
True. To release them. That's a good point. Now, going on to Shivani's question, how do you think the show succeeded or failed in actually bringing awareness to the animals and not just the crazy people? She thinks that was definitely missing for the show.
Oh man, the show was bad for animal welfare. The show was bad for animal welfare.
Was it?
It was. It sensationalized just the psychosis of these people. And that is why people kept watching, is because, oh my God, did Carol kill her husband? Oh my God, is Joe going to get out on parole? Oh my God.
Killed her husband.
Carol Baskin killed her husband.
For sure. If anyone thinks otherwise,
you have it here. You have it live. But if you go back and you watch, and you and I can go back and watch, and people who are watching can go back and watch, they glazed over a lot of abusive scenes and a lot of scenes and a lot of discussions that should have been more discussed if it really was a documentary about the animals.
But I think it's unfair to say if you're saying it just failed though. Even sunlight or any type of light, I think it was shed on the animals, right? A lot of people
But
are writing about them, the captivity and whatnot. I think some light's better than no light.
I don't think the show did it. I think it's people who watch the show, who have background knowledge or background passion about this, that have been blowing it up on social media. That has brought attention to the animal rights part of it. I don't think the show itself did anything for animal rights. I think it was a ripple effect. The show dropped, and then as people watched it, people who are actual animal rights activists, people who are, my hair is not sitting right, people who are actually involved in this kind of work did the activism part. The show did none of it.
But I don't know if I agree with that. Because of the show came the reactions from the people, which ultimately it's like the domino effect comes from partly from the show. Which I agree, like the show might have highlighted some of the craziness more, but I still think it brought to attention some of these topics.
And you know what? Here's the thing. If that is what the producers at Netflix or whatever were smart enough to think through, like, hey, if we sensationalize this show, maybe people will also notice like the mistreatment of animals in the background and be impassioned, and more people will watch because of the sensationalization of how crazy all the characters are, but still noticing the mistreatment. That's phenomenal. But honestly, it's hard for me to attribute that to them. I think that, oh, are you reading that?
Yeah, that was the next question. Do you have a final thought on that before we move on to the next one?
I don't think that's my final thought on it. I don't think the show did anything for animal rights. I think people inspired by the show did a lot for animal rights.
Okay, I slightly disagree, but let's move on. So technically, Carol Baskin was also not breeding, right? So isn't that something good she's doing?
I thought she was breeding. She had cubs.
Oh yeah, she did
Yeah,
have.
she had cubs.
Also, she flashed it. She made it seem like she had a lot more animals than she actually did.
She had cubs in her house, which is how you know she was breeding. The only thing that Carol did differently is that she didn't let people handle the cubs. That's what Doc and Joe were doing. Is that they had like all these social events and like monetized events with the cubs. That's what she was doing differently. Was she wasn't taking the cubs places. She wasn't letting people see the cubs, but she was, of course, she was breeding.
Oh, like the mall shows that Joe and them were doing.
Yeah.
Shivani's on fire with the questions.
All right, what's it say? I don't have my glasses on, so you gotta read it.
Another question. What are some good resources that people can either donate to or bring awareness to do good for animals, such as tigers?
Oh, these were my shameless plugs that I was gonna drop at the end, but I can drop them now. Colorado Wildlife Animal Sanctuary. They're located in Keensburg. You can donate to them. You can go see a lot of these animals that are liberated from these situations. Not only do they take their donations and use them to keep their facility running, any extra donations that they get, so they have like a set amount of money that they use for running the facility. Everything else goes to rehabilitation efforts, endangered species protection, and keeping the wild places wild. World Wildlife Foundation, I know it's a basic one, but they do amazing, amazing work for endangered animals. And they actually have like a lot of organizations under them that like the money filters down to keep, you know, tigers in India and elephants in Africa and things like that. And my personal favorite is the Daphne Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. They're based out of Savo, Kenya. And they do amazing efforts for these orphaned animals whose mothers are killed off by poachers. So rhinos who are killed for horn, elephants who are killed for tusks, tigers that are killed for pelts, or the mothers are stolen to bring here for the exotic animal trade. The Daphne Sheldrick Wildlife Trust takes in all of those orphaned and keeps them wild. So they don't do any of this habituating and taming and things like that. They keep them wild on the reservations, and they raise them with other mothers that may have lost their babies in other herds and other packs and things like that. So that's my personal little favorite. But there's a lot of organizations, and please feel free to reach out to Satvik about any of them. I will drop a whole bunch of organizations with him who are always taking donations, who are always appreciative of free marketing and awareness and things like that. Ooh, I like this question. I know that we're running over time, but I like the question that just got asked. I don't know who asked it though.
What would you say to people who actually provide the business for these people, aka the people who are going to visit the baby tigers and pet them? How do we educate them? Before you say something, this might be a shitty thing to say, but if someone came up to me like, "Hey, you can pet this tiger," I would definitely debate it. Like after watching Tiger King, I'd be like, they're abused, yes, and all of that, but it would be kind of a lure in a way. And you'd be lying if it wasn't. Pet a baby tiger?
Listen, I bring baby animals into the world all the time. And I don't work with very interesting animals. Okay, I work with dogs and cats. You've seen my patients. You could not pay me money to take an hour-old pup or an hour-old kitten away from the mother, let alone a tiger cub. I would not do it to a domesticated animal, let alone a wild animal.
What do you mean? We'll take him away from the mother? Like he was bringing them out and then bring them back to the mother.
But those first hours are crucial. Those first weeks are crucial for bonding, for nursing, for nourishment. Like even the worst dog breeders on the planet. By the way, adopt, don't shop. Never ever buy a purebred dog. You can get an equally loving companion for much, much less from your local shelter. Even the worst dog breeders, Satvik, will not separate pups from their mothers until they are at least 6 weeks. You can go and pick them out, like you can go see them, but you cannot physically remove them from the breeding location until after 6 to 8 weeks because they are still weaning, like they're still nursing from the mother. So the fact that he was taking hour-old cubs who are screaming, that was the most painful part for me to watch, was these cubs are mewling. Their eyes aren't even open yet, and they are screaming. Like, I could never, ever rationalize taking part in. I'm, like, getting misty-eyed talking about it. It's like, that was just, it's painful.
Making me feel bad, like a shitty person. But, okay, putting that aside, 6 weeks, you keep them with the mother, keep that relationship, but after 6 weeks, if they're okay to take out, like, I would still want to pet it, kind of. I would do it once, like it'd be like a guilty pleasure kind of. You wouldn't.
Do you know?
Okay, whatever. Okay, anything?
Okay, so it looks like what a lot of people are asking is how do we increase awareness, right? Like that seems to be.
Yeah. And I can have your plugs in like writing too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not gonna plug anything. How do you increase awareness? Yeah, I think that's what everyone is asking is how do you increase awareness? Here's the thing, is you don't have to pet tigers to fall in love with tigers. Just like you don't have to pet elephants to fall in love with elephants, and you don't have to pet wolf pups to fall in love with wolf pups. If you take the time, and I know this makes me sound so nerdy, but if you take the time to just read about the important roles that these predators and these large animals play in their respective ecosystems, that I promise you that is enough to inspire you to keep them in those wild places. That's where they belong. So much more that you can learn from watching BBC documentaries and reading on reports and reading articles and speaking to professionals in the industry about what is the importance of having these animals stay where they come from. And I promise you that will impassion you. And that's not just coming from me. Like, there is so much that you can learn just via literature, and you don't have to be Satvik, who has like a source at home, right? Anytime he has a kind of question, he can refer to me. You don't have to be like me, where I'm involved in this kind of work every single day. You can do the research on your own, and you can become impassioned, and you can realize like there's something really beautiful and like really special about keeping these animals in their habitats. And I think that is that's the beauty of conservation work, and that's the beauty of global ecology, is right work is keeping them safe in their homes.
True. That's a good point. That's where they belong anyway. So, any last minute things? Anything else you want to plug? Any last minute character takes? Oh, you remember the Mario guy? The
Oh my God,
ex-felon?
our Cuban drug lord?
Yeah, Cuban drug lord. He was like have you seen The Office? He was like Creed from The Office. There could definitely be a spin-off story about this guy. And I don't know what happened to him after that episode. But this guy, there was something definitely up with him. Ex-felon who had tigers and they just didn't talk about him afterwards. Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what was up with that. But you and I really liked him, remember?
Yeah, I think even though he was an ex-felon, he like did his time and got out, and then I think he was about the animals after.
I absolutely remember. And this was one of the best remarks that you made about the whole show, is you were like, you know why I like this guy? Because you loved that scene where they drove up to his mansion, his property, and they wouldn't even let the camera crew in.
Oh,
and you were the one who said,
oh yeah,
you were the one who said that's how you can tell he really loves his animals, is because they won't let the camera crew go in and like poke around and like put cameras in their faces and stuff like that. They only shot him with the animals that he brought out in photographs, and you loved that, remember?
oh yeah, true. No, I do remember.
That's why we liked him so much, is because he didn't try and make money. He wasn't like, oh, come check out this massive property I have over all of my drug money. He was just like, I did my time. This is a passion of mine. Please leave me alone.
Yeah, he was honest about it, which was respectable. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Girija. Any other takes? Any other final thoughts? Thank you so much for coming on.
Final thoughts. Oh God. Adopt, don't shop. Don't buy dogs or cats or anything. If you're gonna take anything, you can adopt. Oh my God. This is my one thing. This is my one thing about how to help animals. Through these organizations, I'll be super fast. You're giving me that look like you're just stop talking. I'll be super fast. Through these organizations like WorldWildlife Foundation, Daphne Sheldrake, you can adopt a certain animal. You can adopt a tiger cub, an elephant calf, anything. You can name them, and then you can make donations on your birthday or on Christmas every year that goes to providing into the well care of this specific animal. And they will send you photo updates every year. They will send you a birth certificate. They will send you like the opportunity to come meet the animal that you've adopted. So that is like my favorite thing ever, is you can be like, oh yeah, I own a tiger. I have the clout of owning a tiger, but you know what makes me extra cool? My tiger is well taken care of and is hunting gazelle like she should be. That makes me the best tiger owner. I love her dearly. And you can go meet these animals. That's the best part, is you can fly out to the reservations, to the refugees. You can see the animals in the wild. And you own this animal. You've adopted this animal.
Oh,
but yeah.
Looks like some people have done that in the comments. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. So yes, that is like one of the best things that you can do. I'm so impassioned about it. I have a shark. I have a great white shark. Her name's Mary Jane. She's 21 feet long.
Girija, you shouldn't own these animals. They belong in the wild.
She's out there killing tuna and dolphin and seals like she should be.
No, I'm just messing. All right, well, this concludes our informative, interesting, and thoughtful convo. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And then you send me those links and I can put them in the posts when I put it on Spotify too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will send you that.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, do I have to leave?
I can remove you. All right. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. The third official episode of Masti. I will have this out on IGTV and Spotify by tomorrow. Stay tuned. Thank you all. Looking forward to the next episode on Monday. Have a good night.